Marvellous. And we're rolling. Sierra. Oh, dear. I was at Warrior, Mary Rose, and well, if I can think properly, before my brain implodes. HMS Hood's bell. I must have missed that when I walked through the museum, which is a real shame. It's not like me to be that So, questions. Questions of a general variety. I don't know what I'm looking at there, Samurai, but I hate it. I legitimately hate it because it's a terrible design. Whoever thought of it clearly has no understanding of how aerodynamics work. God fucking damn it. That is not a flyable aircraft. I mean, by itself, without a payload, it's a flyable aircraft, but you put anything on that flatbed at all, and you can kiss goodbye to your ability to lift off into the skies. Speaking of, I know British battlecruisers of the age suffered inadequate deck armour for longer ranges, but was there any other flaws in British battlecruisers in general? Well, first of all, that's just not true. Hood did not have inadequate deck armour for when she was built. Neither did the Renowns, neither did the Big Cats. It's just that when you keep a battlecruiser in service for 30 years and don't throw her in for a full-scale rebuild like she should have had, turns out that, yeah, you will be vulnerable to modern ships with modern guns. Did the British ever consider converting companies? Sarah's already answered this, but no. Basically for the reason that they already had ships that were equivalent to Lexington and Saratoga, in terms of what they offered in terms of... I mean, I know they weren't quite as effective overall as Lexington and Saratoga were, but it's still, with the three sisters, Furious, Courageous, and Glorious, they got the same thing the US got out of Lexington and Saratoga. And the British had If I could say one word to David Beatty and he would believe you, what would it be? Communicate! Samurai? No. I hate that. Take it away. Brackman, when I said I was shelving that question, I meant it. I am going to need...
you said actually you'd continue next week.
Well...
Yeah.
I'm changing that to I'm shelving it until I can get Drac. Because I want him on this one, because...
We actually had a fair bit more debate about it with some others.
it's the sort of alt history question he actually doesn't mind because it's very limited in scope, and it doesn't butterfly too aggressively. Let me see if I can get Drac for next week, and I should be able to get him. There's no reason why I can't. And then we'll give that thing the proper crack open it deserves. All right. Anyway, more questions.
Well, mate, Nia gave you one. If Malta was such a strategic position during North Africa, why didn't they try and fortify it further with reinforcements from Egypt?
Because they didn't need to, plus it's a very small island.
And also, Gunnery Officer asking about thoughts on the B-32 versus the 29.
I know they existed. But that's about it. I don't know their specification differences between the B-32 and the B-29. So I can't really comment. Which is better for carrier escort duties, North Carolina or KGV? KGV simply because they can run at 28 knots without shaking themselves to bits from being built. It takes the North Carolinas a couple of years to get to the point where they can run at 28 knots without shaking their sterns to pieces.
Having a quick look at the stats between the two. Honestly, they're very similar in role.
Yeah, but the difference is...
Performance-wise, they probably wouldn't... Well, performance-wise, they probably wouldn't differ too much.
As I said, the difference is one can run at 28 knots from completion without shaking itself to bits,
No,
one can't.
no, sorry, I was referring to B-29 versus 32.
Oh, right.
I was just taking a quick look at the specification, and really, there's not... From what I can tell from a brief glance, there's not really much in it that'll change things significantly.
Basically, yeah. Also, it's rare to see Sierra turn up for ramblings. It's nice. It's a font of knowledge, occasionally. Plus, he knows things I don't know.
Sierra is playing Sierra. Ah.
Is Skyrim a requirement for attending ramblings?
I think that's more just what they currently do.
I also bit my tongue.
I know how painful that can be.
Ooh, that's
Wait a second.
That's
Wait a sec. This gun now says, like, what race you are in Skyrim? What?
Wow, that is...
Or is that something special?
Wow.
A mod. So that's a mod thing? Huh. I might have to look into that. That's pretty cool.
What are your thoughts on USS Texas staying at action stations for 50 days when in the Pacific? If you want my honest answer, it happened. I don't know what else to tell you, Chief.
That does look gorgeous, Sierra. I have to agree. I need to redo my Skyrim mod files at some point.
Like, a lot of these questions are, like, if... I'm sorry to say, a lot of them from me, you'll get fairly simple answers, because the answers are, well, fairly straightforward.
Cut and dry answers.
Yeah, if Texas was at action stations for 50 days in the Pacific, continuously, then she must have needed to be at action stations for 50 days. There must have been a reason.
Brackman, both. I do not see why one should limit themselves.
Could a carrier battleship hybrid ever work? No.
Yes, technically speaking.
No,
in
Dragon.
one very specific instance.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, they actually looked at this. There is one ship class which could work.
No,
yes,
Dragon.
Well, / Richelieu.
No, Dragon.
Yes.
Battleship carriers don't ever work, because one is a battleship, one is a carrier. One goes and gets shot at, the other one doesn't want to get shot at. You blend the two together, you get the worst of both worlds. You get a carrier that's going to get shot at, and a battleship that has less firepower and armor than one its size would otherwise have.
No, if that's literally not true, though, in the case of Richelieu.
It's still... yeah, but...
There was an act... Like, as me and Hood have especially mentioned...
Dragon.
This was an actual thing they considered.
Yes, but it would have been a failure, because a carrier's job is to sit and loft aircraft. A battleship's job is to go and get shot at and shoot things. A carrier should not be getting shot at by surface warships, and a battleship should not be sat at the back doing nothing in a naval engagement. The two ships are incompatible in their roles. Building one is a mistake, and the resources could be used elsewhere to build something else. How much? Come on, give me a reason. I mean, I don't see what reason you can possibly
survivability.
give.
I said, considering the US and France both looked at an actual design and declared that it would work for
No, I'm
what
not
they
saying.
intended,
I'm not saying it
clearly
wouldn't.
suggest that
I'm not saying
there
it
was some
wouldn't.
thought that it
wouldn't work. It'd function perfectly well. Like it'd function fine. It's not a problem.
Like
It's
from
more
what they
just...
could tell, there was no loss of firepower and it could still engage in the front line.
Well, yeah, it could, but
Keep in mind, by this point, battleships are already being phased out.
Yeah, but the point is that a battleship's job
is if we're talking, because if we're talking very late 40s here, the idea of a battleship engaging another battleship in combat is declining. To be honest.
Well, yeah, but at that point,
the idea of battleship on battleship engagements are decreasing, where battleship is now becoming more surface bombardment, which is a perfect situation for that idea.
Very niche.
I agree with your idea that technically bringing the idea of a carrier battleship into a battle line is very questionable at best.
And bring up and using a carrier battleship as just a carrier is also. Yeah.
It kind of negates the point of having the guns.
Yeah.
At that point, why don't you have just an actual carrier?
Yeah, but the thing is at that point,
this is why I'm saying
you're getting into the realm.
It does technically work in certain instances.
Yeah, but at that point, it's not really a carrier battleship, and it's more.
What's it called? Now I was asking how much more survivability would a carrier inherit from a battleship or
see, it doesn't really make much odds because you strip off a lot of the armor. You redesign the hull, superstructure changes, deck layout changes.
Need I mention Shinano?
Yeah.
Shinano, Eagle, a couple of others.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change anything.
But carrier!
That's Graf B. Not Graf B, sorry. That's what's called Graf Zeppelin,
yeah, that's literally just a heavily armoured carrier with lots of secondary guns.
That's Graf Zeppelin.
Actually, it is. That's literally just Graf Zeppelin.
What's called Chris, one you missed because it was sort of hidden in. What if Nelson had 3 super firing turrets? Instability.
Yeah, basically.
Would be my guess.
They really should have. They really should have gone
super firing on its tonnage.
Yeah, they really should have gone with the doctrine that the one they had before, which was the 2 front ones flat on the deck and the one behind it super firing.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, not F2 and F3. You build the Nelsons, but you keep the turret arrangement of F3. What would be the point? What if we replaced all the guns on the Yamato with triple 25s? Congratulations, you've created the world's largest Daka dispensary, and the sheer amount of bullets it's going to throw out is probably going to shoot down most, if not all, aircraft that come near it. The only problem is it's going to shoot them down after they've dropped their ordnance.
There's actually a interesting question raised by Zwikaku.
Just very...
a week or two ago. Yep, go on. Yeah. Like, it wasn't one put in the chat, but it was just one I was thinking of mentioning. But basically, the idea Wyoming looks in that. For some strange reason, I actually like the way she looks. Also, that reminds me, I need to see if I can find an image of
Oh, were we? Okay,
Hired Duke in a training fit in the 40s.
A10 Brainlet, you reincarnate as BT 2 weeks before Jutland. What do you do? Well, first of all, I take the... If I've got 2 weeks, and I know there's not going to be any engagements with the High Seas Fleet, the entire battlecruiser squadron is sailing for gunnery practice, and we are putting all the interlocks back before we do. We are drilling constantly for 2 weeks before Jutland. Seymour is getting the boot, and I'm getting another flag officer instead. Sorry, another signalman instead. Which basically means I'm going to turn the battlecruiser fleet into the actual thing it should have been. Then I will fight the Battle of Jutland as BT did, except I will be constantly relaying my course, speed, and direction. I'll have 5th Battle Squadron with me at all times. We'll absolutely clean Hipper's chronometer with the 15-inch guns of the Queen Elizabeths. And then, once Jellicoe arrives, we'll mop up what's left. And destroy the High Seas Fleet.
I presume you'd also make sure the ammunition handling's improved.
That's what I said, yeah, we're putting all the safety interlocks back.
Well, yeah. Apart from destroy the High Seas Fleet, ultimately, the only problem I do see is potentially you might still get affected by Green Boy.
Have to fight somebody and force his way out, and
at
that
theoretically
point...
you can stop him, theoretically you might be able to stop them being able to leave.
Yeah, and at that point, it's, he's got nowhere to